So we have Dr. Nachiket Vyas, and he's practicing in Jaipur. Well, we're going to be talking about kidney stone management as of now. So, sir, very welcome.
Thank you.
So the very first question which comes to my mind is why these days the kidney stone is on the high rise and constant rise? What could be the reason behind it?
I personally feel that maybe the incidence of renal stones has not changed that much over the past few decades, but however, the pickup rate of these stones has increased. What I personally feel is that there weren't access to imaging modalities previously with the free availability that you have right now.
Right.
So, for example, when we talk about ultrasound and other modalities like even X-ray, they weren't available inside the periphery of the state that I work, like Rajasthan. I mean, it was difficult getting even a sonologist to sit inside a place like Bardmer or Bikaner or maybe the peripheral most parts like Pokhran also. Patients had to travel to a long distance just to get an X-ray. So, I don't think that the incidence overall per se would have changed over a few decades, but maybe a change in incidence and prevalence happens over, say, 100 years or 200 years or 50 years. But I think that the pickup rate of these stones has increased with the availability of these imaging modalities. That's my personal take.
That's amazing. Well, I would be asking you about some of your case which was most challenging when it comes to kidney stone, and how did you remove the patient's stone, and how is he?
We still get a lot of challenging cases. This is because, I mean, more than these stones per se, I mean, the profile of the patients become a challenge. For example, if we have a patient with a large burden of kidney stones, but however the patient is, say, having uncontrolled diabetes, he's, hypertensive, he has multiple problems like a thyroid issue which can affect the anesthesia, and then also patients sometimes which are obese. So if you have that kind of a patient, then per se the treatment of that stone becomes challenging vis-a-vis a patient who is not obese, who doesn't have all these comorbidities. So we do encounter challenging cases. I think one of the most challenging cases that we've had is those patients who have cardiac problems. They've been stented and their cardiac function is not the best of cardiac function that they have. Heart is pumping at 25%, so they become a surgical challenge. But if you have a good operating team, if you have good anesthesia backup, good ICU backup, then I think that you're able to do these challenging cases even by endourology. So more than the stone, I think that the problems related to the patients become a factor and the case become challenging.
True. Well, in your experience, what precautions can be taken effectively to avoid stones? And of course, when we are talking about stones, there is something called recurrent stones.
Yes.
Because there are 50% people who will will have the recurrent stones.
Yes.
So what to do in order to prevent that?
So the 5 most important things that I tell my patients as far as prevention, inside the prevention of stone is, the first and the foremost is that you have to drink plenty of water.
True.
That is one of the most easy ways, and universal ways that it doesn't cost money. Water is available everywhere. To drink, clean, potable water, at least 5 liters of water a day. The second thing is that you have to, if you formed a stone and you've at a higher risk of, again forming a stone, if you're a recurrent stone former, then try to restrict your sodium. So keep your sodium intake to 2 grams a day, but it's not possible, like easier said than done. So nobody's going to weigh their sodium and put it inside food. So what we tell patients is that upar se namak mat do, don't add salt extra to your diet. Jo hai inside the food, just consume that. Don't make it a habit of putting salt inside your food and consuming. So number 2 would be that you have to restrict your salt. Number 3 is that you have to restrict in moderation calcium and oxalate materials. This is because 70% of stones inside our country are calcium oxalate stones. So if you would restrict your calcium intake, that would be detrimental to your bones, to your muscles. This is because we all know 95% of bones are made up of calcium. So it would be, what we tell our patients is that you have calcium in moderation. So whatever calcium goes in the diet, you take that. But if you're in a habit of having, say, 2 glasses of milk, then have 1 glass of milk. If you're in a habit of having, say, 2 to 4 katoris of dahi, then have 2 katoris of dahi. So you have to keep your calcium in moderation, and oxalate containing foods, for example, green leafy vegetables in moderation, something like spinach or plums in moderation, all your other nuts, they are a big source of oxalates, like cashew nuts and almonds and all. So have them in moderation. Don't restrict them. Yes. don't restrict them, but have them in moderation, everything. And the other thing is that have things which have got a lot of citrates and vitamin C.
Right.
For example, have lemon juices, have fruit juices. They actually are protective in renal stones.
Those
so these
helps.
are the few. Yeah, yes.
So there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to kidney stone. Maybe there are a lot of myths. If you want to break any.
I think that the biggest myth that we can break is that any size of stone would come out. That is, I mean, detrimental in the fact that, especially villagers, they start to believe that in some alternative kind of medicine. Like, I'm not against Ayurveda or homeopathy, but they come with unrealistic thought processes that maybe they have a 16 mm stone or 20 mm stone. It will come out with homeopathy and Ayurveda, but that's not going to happen. Even the medicines that we prescribe, the allopathic medicines, we say that okay, if it's a 6-7 mm size stone, then it can come out. So I think that a patient should be made aware of what type of stones are bad for the kidney. They can damage the kidney, they can lose their kidney. So we have patients who have had a 20 mm stone which is obstructing the kidney, and they've got nothing done for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then they come back, and instead of the stone being removed, they have to have the kidneys getting removed. So,
well, what do you think is going to be the next breakthrough when it comes to kidney stone domain?
I think that the next breakthrough is going to be biomarkers. We'll be able to identify family clusters of stone diseases. We'll be able to find out which patients are at a risk of developing stones in the future, so they can take their preventive measures from early on. So I think that biomarking is going to be the next important thing.
Well, the most important question as it is going to be for the last. Well, the question is, what are the indicative symptoms as a person can get an idea that I might be having a stone?
Okay, so the three most important ones are, number one, you can have flank pain.
Okay.
Your kidneys are present in the flank, so you can have a flank pain.
Yeah.
Number two, you can have a pain which is radiating from the loin to the groin. The area of the kidney is known as the loin. The lower area where our urinary bladder is, that is the groin. So we say that the patients can have a loin to groin pain. Then they can be bleeding and infection. So these are the three or four things that you need to be careful about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
It was wonderful
Thank
having
you to
you.
Alchem. Thank you to you for giving the opportunity. Thank you, ma'am. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Bye.